Hey, and welcome to today's podcast. Here we are talking about how to be more articulate and concise as a leader. So I have with me here Peter, the founder of Magnetic Speaking, and he'll go through and share his experience of working with other C-level executives on what he's seen them do well, what he's seen them do not as well, and some mistakes they may have made, and also the importance of being concise and articulate as a leader. My name is Chaz, and we'll go ahead and dive into this. So, Peter, first, just start off and share a little bit about what it means to be concise and articulate as a leader.
Awesome. I think concise and articulate, they go hand in hand. Because sometimes when people think they have to be concise, they end up being on the Curt side. Like, yes, no,
Mm.
no way. We're not doing this, right? So that's too Curt. And unfortunately, if you do that, then people will think you're mean or you're not understanding or you're not empathetic or you're a dictator. So you don't want to do that. You don't want to be on the Curt side. And also, let's look on the other side where you're fluffy and you're talking and you're tangential. Also, you don't want to do that. So you want to be right in the middle where you're concise, you're surgical, you answer the questions, and you articulate and flesh out your ideas thoroughly.
That's great. So,
Mhm.
fleshing out thoroughly. And how can someone know where they are on this curve? So, for example, a lot of times leaders won't always get feedback, right? Let's say, for example, someone's a CEO or someone's the owner of their small business, or another leader who is more about managing people and doesn't get much feedback him or herself. So,
Mhm.
what are some things they can do just to get feedback on what they're doing right, what they're doing wrong?
Most of the leaders we work with usually are self-aware, so they know when they're being Curt or when they're being too tangential and they go all over the place. And when they come to us, they tell us like, I'm just like too to the point. Like I had a CFO come to me and say the other day, I'm too boring, too to the point.
Hmm.
I realized that he was saying he's being too Curt.
Hmm.
And so that's how it starts, with self-awareness. Another way to do it, if you have a trusting team around you that gives you feedback, they will tell you you're too Curt. If you have the team not so trusting, then they're going to show it in their body language. If you're too Curt, then people just look around when you say, make a decision or say something. They expect somebody else to come back and debate with you or have a discussion with you, but not them, because they're scared. So that should be feedback for you as a leader as well, that you're too Curt. On the other hand, if you start a meeting and at the end of the day, at the end of the meeting, nobody had said anything except you, then you're just tangential. You're just going all over the place.
Going all over the place. So those are two opposite ends of the spectrum here. So let's start breaking them down. Being Curt and going all over the place. So first
Yes.
thing, being Curt. So what is bad about that? Because maybe someone's looking at that and saying, I'm to the point. I'm effective. What
Mhm.
are some negative consequences of that, and why should people start to think differently about it?
Yeah, people who are Curt, they assume people think like them or they have the context of what they're saying. And that's not the case. You come to the meeting with multiple stakeholders, and they all have different contexts, different experiences, different backgrounds about the topic, and you can't expect them to be all on the same page. So if you're Curt, you're just making an assumption that they can read your mind, and that's not the case.
Hmm.
That's what's wrong with it. So if you want to be clear, you have to give them context. You have to flesh out your thinking in front of them, in addition to sharing your opinion.
Got it. Okay. What are some drawbacks if people are still being Curt and not sharing their thoughts and thinking like everyone's thinking like them?
First of all, you're not going to build rapport with your team. That's the first thing. They're going to view you as a dictator, especially if you're saying your opinions based on authority. If, let's say, you don't have the authority and you just share your opinions, people will be like, "Ah, he's just she or he is just opinionated."
Hmm.
And that's when there will be resentments in the meetings, and people think they're being attacked by you if you're just Curt, without fleshing out your ideas.
Okay, without fleshing out ideas.
They'll
So
say, this is the grumpy person in the room.
this is the grumpy person. They might not overtly say that through their words, but their body suggests.
That's right. Ah, look at him again, sharing
Uh,
opinions, you know?
yep. Great. And then what are some things that they can do? So if they are a little bit curt, they've realized it, they realize this may be hurting their speaking style. What are
Mhm.
one or two small changes they can do to start warming themselves up and getting more comfortable with it?
I would say just taking the time to flesh out the ideas that they're sharing. So let's say somebody has a weird opinion. The CFO says we should invest in Bitcoin.
Mm,
Like he can be like, we should invest in Bitcoin, or Bitcoin is a scam, or Bitcoin is the greatest thing ever. That's Curt, right? However, if he says Bitcoin is the best thing ever, he needs to flesh it out. If she says Bitcoin is a scam, then she needs to flesh it out. Like, what's the reasons behind it? Here's why I'm thinking it's a scam.
mm. And by
And
flesh it out, you mean give the reason why they think that. So follow that
exactly,
statement up with a because or a so that and finishing it.
exactly. That's what fleshing it out is. And it's a metaphor from you're adding flesh to the bones.
Flesh it.
Yes.
Got it. So don't give people bones.
Yeah, exactly. Don't hit them over the head with a bone.
That's right. That's right. All right, great, Peter. And then let's take another look now at if a leader is feeling like they're more all over the place. And
Mhm.
I know I've talked to a few individuals who will come to us and they'll say, I feel like I'm all over the place. I feel unstructured. I don't know what to do about it. So
Mhm.
what are some things that can be negative if they are all over the place and some drawbacks that would come with
Yeah, the drawbacks, nobody will understand where you're coming from.
that? Hmm.
People will tune you out. You are not influential. And unfortunately, people will assume that you're not a clear thinker because you're all over the place. These are the drawbacks. So it's good to resolve this as quickly as possible as a leader. And the good news is it's you use the same solution you use for being curt, right? Because you want to come to the middle. Instead of fleshing out too much, you just flesh out less. You take one organ at a time, one limb at a time, right? Instead of addressing the whole thing and the whole universe.
Okay.
So if you want to translate the idea from limb to idea, then it's idea, one thought at a time. You say Bitcoin is the greatest thing ever. Stick to that. Don't talk about Ethereum. Don't talk about cryptocurrency in general. Don't talk about fiat dollar. Don't talk, and when you first share your idea.
So for example, Bitcoin is the greatest, explain why, and then see what the group has to say. Instead of
Exactly.
Bitcoin the greatest, here's why. Ethereum's also cool, but Bitcoin has this and jumping. So that's that
Exactly. And you start comparing, and then fiat currency, and then the Roman Empire, and then history, and
uh-huh.
then nobody gets anything. Flesh one idea at a time before you move to Ethereum, before you move to the Roman Empire, before you move to the gold standard, before you move to fiat currency, all of that. Just
One
one
idea
idea
at
at
a
a time.
time. Right, right.
Yeah.
All right, great. And what are some other tips that you work with and leaders to help them be more articulate? And it could be more than just messaging as well. Maybe it's in their delivery.
Yeah, one of the first things you want to practice is having strong opinions, which means you take all your current knowledge and feelings and attitude around a certain topic, and then you synthesize one statement. When you say that statement, then you back it up with some evidence or story, and then you move on to your next statement. And it takes practice. It's not that easy to come up with one statement. For example, if I ask you, what's your opinion about electric cars? They'd be like, whoa, there's so many things here. So it takes building the muscle to be able to go, okay, right now, right here, this second, what's coming up for me about electric cars? So we can do an exercise. So what's coming up for you? What's your opinion about electric cars, Chaz?
So first thing is definitely just a big overwhelm, right? Are we talking about Tesla? Are we talking about this? So,
Exactly.
so that's what first comes up. So to take a center and really think about electric cars, one of the things that comes up for me is the environment. Is it's
Awesome.
better for the environment.
Great. So your statement is electric cars are
Better for the environment.
better for the environment. Great. That's one thought. Notice that's the first step, is condensing all this stuff that's going in the background into one thing. And now you flesh it out. And now you're going to be concise and articulate. If you stop there and they're good for the environment, that's being curt. So you need to flesh it out. If you go with everything in your head about Tesla and Neo and Chinese market and American market, then you're going to be all over the place.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So
and it takes practice.
So start off with that one opinion. Electric cars are good for the environment. Here's why. Then maybe go to the next one. And with electric cars, Tesla is doing cool things. Here's why, and going down instead of going wide with everything.
Exactly. And I know it's you've been with a company for a while. You've been a trainer before, so you know how hard it is to work your statement muscle, because every bone in your body wants to share everything. Because as a human being, you're a human being. You want to be thorough. You want to be complete. You want to share your thought process. Unfortunately, people are not interested in that. They're just interested one opinion at a time. You flesh it out, you move on.
Yeah. And something that I had struggled with to get better at this for me, and I'm sure a lot of others are out there from what I hear, is the compound sentences. So instead of saying electric cars are good because they're good for the environment and they're quiet on the streets, that was something I would always combine these multiple things. But what I've learned is to definitely stay zoomed in.
Exactly.
The biggest thing for me at that moment. And
exactly
the environment, but maybe it is more of a personal thing. So zooming
exactly. That forces you to go one idea at a time. Then of course, like once you're done with the environment, you can go, in addition, they're quiet.
Yep.
So they help with regular pollution and they also help with sound pollution, right? And now it's a different idea, and then you can flesh it out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Great.
Usually, like with some clients, I work with some executives. It's so hard for them to abstract in the moment. Sometimes you spend like half an hour practicing. I'll be like, what's your opinion about cryptocurrency? What's your opinion about cars? What's your opinion about the environment? What's your opinion about politics? What's your opinion about space travel? And I just keep hammering, like hammering them. It's like an exercise, and they keep getting better and better and better and more comfortable with sharing one opinion first. And then after we're done with that, we start working on, let's flesh it out.
Let's flesh it out. And would you say that is a really good way for them to be quick on their feet? Because a lot of times people will come to us and they will say, I want to think quicker on my feet. I want to do better in interviews. I don't do well with Q&A. That exercise and that practice of building that muscle, maybe it's with a coach, maybe it's on their own. Would you say that's a good way to do that, or are there better ways?
Exactly. Because you start building the neural network in your brain to synthesize information really, really quick on the spot to present one idea.
Great. And any other tips or mistakes that you see leaders do, maybe more in their delivery now, of how they can be more concise and articulate in delivering what they're saying?
I think maybe we can add pacing in here.
Pacing, okay.
Yeah, pacing your thoughts. One of the best ways I found that would help you pace your thoughts is to use your body language for pacing, because the body is anchored in reality. You can't move it too fast. You can't move it too slow without noticing. So that's going to help you control your pacing. So when you're sharing your ideas, instead of doing ahs and ums and sometimes fast, sometimes slow, you would just use your hands to articulate your ideas. Like if you have two ideas, let's compare A and B. Notice like there is a gap in between in my pace, A and B. That's controlled by my hand movement. Like if I want to speed it up, I have to do A and B. And that's gonna look weird, right?
Yep.
And then so that would anchor me in reality. So I'm pacing in the right way. That's what I would say. And that helps on being articulate, because sometimes when people start ramping up without any anchor in reality, then their brain just starts running like a runaway train, and it starts going from station to station, and different trains start running at the same time, and it just becomes a mess. But if you anchor it in reality, everything slows down to a normal human pace.
Makes sense. The normal human pace. And you may be also more connected when you're using your body too, instead of just going in a million different ways.
That's right.
Great, Peter. Well, as we'll wrap it up here, anything else you want to share in terms of how leaders can improve their ability to be more articulate and concise?
Yes, I would say it's a practice. You get better with practice. Like, practice is the key here. So you don't have to go to a class to practice. You don't have to go to a meeting to practice. You practice in private, usually, either in a class, in a book club, or when you're reading articles. For me, I practice in all these scenarios, especially when I'm reading books. So I'm reading a book, and I would stop at, when I finish a page or a paragraph or a chapter, and I would think to myself, what was the main idea here? What is the author saying? And that helps you be concise and articulate.
Very good.
I would practice anytime you read anything. Just practice this skill.
Practice. Well, great, Peter. Well, thanks for sharing your thoughts today. And for you listening, see where you are on the scale of being too curt or being too long-winded, and then adjust from there. If you're too curt, add a little bit more reasoning behind it. If you feel you're too long-winded, stick with one idea at a time. We'll see you next time.
Perfect.